It's Wednesday, December 14th, 2022, 4 p.m. This Board of Commissioners workshop is called to order. City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Mayor Hendricks,
Here.
Vice Mayor Andrews,
Here.
Commissioner Taglerini,
Here.
Commissioner Kerr,
Here.
Commissioner Hudson,
Here.
all are present.
First is public comment. If you have anything that is not on tonight's agenda, please step up to the podium, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon, Chuck Dillon, 529 Lillian Drive. I just want to bring up a couple of things here in terms of what seems to be going rampant here is the VRBOs, and especially now even more so out on Crystal Island. And they are, I'm not sure how exactly they're being handled. And I know it, which goes into the second thing is, I've noticed some of the times when there's been fines levied against some of these people that you guys have been, and you gentlemen have been lowering the fines, kind of with the exception of Mayor Hendricks. I feel you need to go to some of these magistrate hearings and hear what's going on. And when the magistrate finds these people, he finds them for a reason and they lower it. And if we keep going, if you commissioners keep going in and lowering the fines even more, it's not going to get us anywhere and it's not going to help the whole situation. And especially with the VRBOs. Other than that, thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, topics for discussion. First is King of the Beach Fishing Tournament contract with Old Salt Fishing Foundation.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, if possible, I'd like to request a change in the order to the agenda. I'd like to move item H, the last item regarding John's Pass Village activity designation, to the beginning of the meeting. I have a few items I'd like to discuss, and considering the length of the agenda and the fact that the regular board meeting has to begin at 6, I'd like to make sure that this important item is addressed. Possibly, if the board would go along with that, I'd like to start with that.
I'd like to go ahead with the King of the Beach since I've already announced it. I've got no problem with it going up right after that. I don't imagine this.
That would be
take
fine.
long.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anybody else?
Anyone else have any objections?
No. Thank you.
Okay. So I guess Old Salts is up for a contract.
Yep. Mayor and Commissioners, Robin Gomez, City Manager. This item is to look for a future and a 5-year agreement, essentially to renew an existing agreement that the Board of Commission approved back in 2018. We are in the final or the 5th year of the agreement, and we are looking to extend or sign a new agreement that pretty much keeps the same stipulations going forward. It's a 5-year agreement. The requirements as are listed in the memo in front of you in the packet are that we would receive a special event application from the Old Salt Foundation at least 60 days prior to their events, that the city continues to be listed as a headliner, top billing host, sponsors. The city's recognized as part of the awards, presentations, and opportunities. We waive the fees for use of the city facilities. Old Salt in turn provides a $2,500 payment for field restoration, preservation, aeration, and Old Salt provides the city a projected financial impact statement 60 days upon the event's conclusion. We currently, the city does not, or in our recreation department, we do not budget for these fishing tournaments. Any other city services are directly billed to the Old Salt Foundation for the actual cost of those services. And Jay, anything else to add? Covered it up. And Old Salt Foundation representatives are here as well.
Mr. Mayor, Board of Commissioners, thanks for having us today. We're here today to actually ask to see some of those fees waived, if that's a possibility, instead of having a fee. I mean, we've had a symbiotic relationship with the city for many, many years. We have taken a slight hit since COVID. We are an elite event with the county. We have they just did an economic impact study on the King of the Beach. each event is a $10 to $12 million economic impact each year. Also, since COVID this year, our insurance has tripled. We now pay $60,000 for event insurance to have basically 2 events. And it seems we don't mind paying, obviously, trash fees directly related to it. Our EMS is kind of playing us back there as well, I believe, but EMS has kind of gone up a little bit, and it keeps creeping. We rather, instead of, for our organization, say, okay, we make more money, we donate it to the city. Every time the city's come to Old Salts, we've always been there for whatever, from the 9/11 memorial to the handicap pier to, we actually built the original now observation deck at the Madeira Beach Middle School. I mean, we've been around for over 52 years now in the city. And those fees are starting to impact us. The other thing that we're having a major issue with is we're starting to lose some of our spectators, if you will. Parking is becoming a major issue. The fees for parking are going up with the school, as well as transportation to get people back and forth just to move them. Our event is 100% free. We don't charge. We never charge for parking. The only thing we charge for, obviously, is the registration fee for the tournament. And all those dollars go back to the anglers. We don't even take a percentage of that. We're starting to a little bit do that. We try to keep the event as cheap as we possibly can to bring the most amount of people to the city as we possibly can. And to keep the average angler being a fishing community involved with the event every year, as many as we can. It's a very family-oriented event. I know many of you have been out there, from our youth division to our ladies division to our overall to single outboard engine. Like we try to encompass everybody. And that's a big part of what we do. In the spring, we had over 800 children on this seawall. Oh, excuse me, moving. And we gave them all a rod and reel, a real rod and reel, and had them fish. It was a $70 rod and reel combination for 800 kids. So it's, our theory is more tackle boxes, less X boxes. Try to get kids back into the sport, keep the sport going. And with your help and your continued help, we can continue to do those things and meet our goals. Everybody in the Old Salts is a volunteer, including myself. Nobody's paid. So every dollar that we do raise goes back to charity. And like I said, if we can look at those fees and, for example, the aeration, if we can write a donation check for that, we'd rather do that. If we can help the rec center in any way, we always had. One of the first events here before this was rebuilt, we bought the rec center. They wanted a foosball table, and they didn't have a budget for it. So we bought the foosball tables for the old rec. Like I said, it's been a long time standing relationship that we've had. And if there's anything we can do to help alleviate some of the cost, so we can continue to do what we do in the city and continue to do what we do for the anglers in the community, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Do you know what that financial consideration is, Tom?
So, yeah, like I said, one of the biggest fees that's been incurred recently and it's gone up is the EMS fees. And if there's a way that, like I said, rather donate to the fire department than write a check to the fire department, just because of the outreach that we do have and the way that our foundation's set up. So for instance, if they need a title sponsor for a run, rather do that. They need a piece of equipment, they don't have enough, to subsidize that another way, if that's possible. Same way with the rec. Like I said, $2,500, we rather write a donation check than a bill. It just, for our organization, looks much better. And if we make more money, we can obviously donate more money. Max one year asked, who want to take the kids to the aquarium for the summer program. It was a $2,900 bill. Old Salt's paying for it. We did 2 fishing days that year as well on top of it. Donated all the rods to the kids, came out each individual day for 2 days and took them fishing. You know, things like that is a lot easier than being feed. It just looks different for our organization as well. And like I said, the better we do, the more we can give. And that's our bottom line. That's why we're here, is to be able to give back to the local community. All the charities we support as well are all local charities. From the Selma Mastery Ovarian Cancer Foundation, from our ladies tournament to Park is one of our biggest charities we support. And there's several others throughout the course of the year. American Legions, the Rotaries, you know, other organizations like that. I mean, it's 150 just per event. We have 150 volunteers. It's over 2,000 volunteer hours to put the event on. And like I said, anything that we can do, just because our fees have gone up substantially. Like I said, and we have to find a resolution and hopefully working with the city too on that, a parking situation or how to move people better. To be able to get these spectators back on the field, because the anglers are going to come, but the spectators where we really maximize those charity dollars.
Okay, I'm curious as to what the total financial impact is, though. I mean, what kind of reduction are you looking for?
I might be able to help out a little bit with there. On average, and I'm just kind of going from memory here, between both events, we pay about close to $10,000 total. That's with the aeration of the field with it. And the garbage fee, which is, you know, probably one that we absolutely need to pay. I mean, we use the most of is about $1,000 each event, which is so 2. And if, like I said, if we could reduce, the EMS or, you know, even the application fees and some of that kind of stuff, maybe we could get it down to where, or, you know, like take the aeration out of the contract that way. So it's written that way and more give it back in a different way. We could maybe get our impact down to where we're more like, you know, $5,000 for the year instead of 10 is kind of what we were trying to hope for, or thereabouts. I don't know. Those are rough numbers from what I've got.
Yeah. I'd like to hear from staff on this, really.
Mayor and Commission, for their April event, we billed a total of $5,862. As was stated, an application fee $250. The dumpsters and the trash were $612. The fire EMS fees were $2,650, and then the $2,500 for the aeration. So Ms. Radansky is correct about 10,000 for both events for the year. And however direction you'd like to provide, we'll work with Old Salt. And there is, as Mr. Urbanski said, a significant economic impact to our city and the area by having both tournaments here. That clearly is, and our name is projected out even in the program that they receive assistance from Visit St. Pete Clearwater. So again, a sizable economic impact.
So could I just ask a question? Just reading the discussion on the notes here, it says the city waives for use of the city's facilities. What facilities do we waive?
Essentially renting the venue. So the park, ROC Park, or Field 3 and the grass beyond Field 3, as well as the recreation center.
But Old Salt pays for the garbage.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
The garbage. So basically, it seems like it's just for the EMS.
The EMS, it has gone up. And like I said, we don't mind doing the donation for the services. Before what used to happen prior to being billed, actually EMS came to the field and they did outreach. Prior, they would do for spring, for example, they would do the hurricane packets and information. So they were always part of the event. So they were there, and they weren't in there in the capacity that they are now. And we are obviously extremely close. And I know there's a cost associated with that being out there. But like my thought was, is if we can say, okay, is there something that we can sponsor to offset instead of just having a fee, say a race, or if they needed additional funding for something. Like I said, Old Salt's always been there. We can donate a lot. It's a lot easier for us to donate, especially from our sponsor standpoints, than it is to pay just direct fees that are associated. I don't think I said we understand trash is trash, and that's there is a fee. It's there, and everybody's wonderful. I mean, really, that we work with out here. I mean, it's been a long time relationship. I sat on a committee for 18 months before this was rebuilt. I mean, and it just, we were one of the first people to ever have an event here on the field. I know Seafood Fest was here one other time, way back in the day. We also helped found Seafood Fest. Most people don't know that, alongside of SOFA way back. And there was also a fishing tournament that was in part of that as well. Unfortunately, that's not there any longer. They can't fish for shark and hang them up and do certain things like they used to be able to do. And luckily for you, Mr. Mayor, because the shark usually ended up on one of the mayor's doorsteps after the event. But that was pre my time as well. But, like I said, we've incurred a lot more costs this year. Even like I said, our insurance, we literally got our insurance policy 3 days before the event. We had nobody would renew it just because of they were just not doing events. To have the alcohol, liquor liability, general policy, and that's not even including the board operators, insurance. So I mean, that's literally tripled this year.
If I could ask, sorry, one more question. It's
Please.
The recommendation, staff recommended the renewal of the agreement with simplified terms. What does simplified terms mean?
So essentially the same terms that are in the agreement.
As is.
Yes.
Okay. So this would be different, what he's discussing.
Right. Sounds like Mr. Radansky, the Old Salt Foundation is requesting in
I got
lieu of paying fees that they make a donation
Okay,
to the city. And I guess we need to determine what that amount will be.
I got you.
Go ahead.
So I can provide just a little bit of history and I'll keep it quick. Prior to this contract, this event took place on the field. Essentially as a special event. It was treated as a special event, just like every other special event, but they came forward and they asked for a fee waiver. We didn't do anything special, anything extra to make this happen. They treated it as a special event. They paid their special event fees. They paid the fees that were levied or they were waived. And then beyond that, there wasn't, you look at a couple of the agreement incorporations there, clauses, they didn't have to do that. And we didn't have to do that. This contract that was put together 5 years ago has actually turned out to be more work for staff, more work for them just to make this event take place. So if we followed the special event, and this is another option, you guys can obviously, there's going to be direction from you as to what to do, but following the special event process and making sure, because we go through a whole checklist of, safety and all this other stuff and making sure that there's maps and there's fees and there's insurance and all that stuff's covered. But then the fees, what it boiled down to is the tough part in this discussion. So in my eyes, simplified terms would be to continue to treat them as a special event, as we always have. And if we're going to waive fees. If we're not, we're not. But whatever that decision is separate from the way we treat the event. Because from a grand standpoint, I don't think there's any reason to treat them any differently from any other special event we have in town. We're gonna, from a organizational and what information is required standpoint. It just makes it simple. We've got a special event process that my staff and when Mr. Andrews was working down there too, we picked through it quite a bit. It was when I got here, every year prior had somebody's different signature on it because nobody wanted to do it. So we simplified it and made it something that our staff could take care of and do on a daily basis. So, I don't really have I'm going to follow the decision either way, but from my standpoint, the contract actually made it more difficult for us to get this through as an event each time because it's just more work for us, but we'll do whatever. But
all right. Well, I've asked my questions. I'll give somebody else a shot.
Mr. Mayor, if I may. So Yeah, this is a little close to home for me because as Jay said, I mean, when I was running the rec center down there, when the fields were finally built and we bought the old salts back home, it was great. So, and I say this every time when I talk about this event, it is embedded in the DNA of this community. It really, I mean, literally is. And they may have 2 events a year, but Tommy actually hit on it earlier. They're involved all year long. You know, he bought up some things, you know, they did, and he doesn't even remember now because when I was here, he paid for a trip to Clearwater Aquarium for the kids. These seawall tournaments, the amount of family fun that's out there and you know, watching their volunteers cut bait and get these kids involved is fantastic. It was summer camp. It's the highlight of summer camp every year when these guys come, give them all fishing poles every day. So to think that they're not paying anything to the city or not donating on a constant basis to the city is just not true. And then you got to kick in, okay, $10 million economic impact. Now, economic impact is kind of an odd term because you really can't calculate it perfectly, but let's say it's even half that. Okay, so there's $5 million that wasn't coming to the city that comes to the city every year because of these guys are $10 million, right? The third thing, and maybe the most important, again, it harps on whether or not, you know, we're not losing money by waiving any fees to them because the months that they do this, May and November, I know it a little bit more close to home for me because of seasonal stuff, but May and November are not busy months here. So when they have these events, our parking meters are full. People are at our restaurant. John's Pass is full. The entire city is packed. Whereas if it was just a normal November weekend, it wouldn't be. Okay. And I think the last thing and probably the most important thing is, yes, COVID hit these guys pretty hard. And I can tell you that you can see the difference in the event. There's not as many people that came back and they're starting to slowly come back. And I think that that's, you know, they didn't complain during COVID. I didn't see them, you know, stomping their feet saying, you guys got to waive this or else we're not going to have the event here. They didn't threaten to leave. They love us. We love them. It's a 5-year deal, but it's basically a 1-year renewal. So if things start prospering again, we can always go to them, tap them on the shoulder and say, all right, well, let's go back to the original agreement. I think we're good. The only other thing I want to bring up, and Robin, maybe you can clarify this for me. It's number 6 on here. To provide the city a projected financial impact statement. I'm not really sure now. Are we just talking about a financial impact statement of what they're saying they're bringing up? We're not going to go and do I mean, I don't want Andrew to sit there and dig through a nonprofit's, you know, entire financial history in order to come up with something here. What type of financial impact statement are we talking about? Is there really a
Have
parameter
we
for it?
received one, Jay, in the past? I mean, it seems just like a little bit of what they explained more than anything else.
So there's been two trains of thought. The group that put this together, actually, we produced the first one and they went through it and basically said it was all false and there was a lot of accusatory language after that. The second group, the second time we put it together, the group said, we don't need this information. We don't want to see it. So it's been a weird, and it's as simple. And our relationship working on the events is easy. So all I have to do is, hey, Amy, Tommy, we need this for this, you know, to recap it. But it felt like it was a lot of information that really had nothing to do with the contract, because in all fairness, if you're going to do a 5K on the beach and you do a special event packet, I don't go to the organization and say, well, did you donate $500 to Toys for Tots, like you said? And what's your, you know, are you, it just seems like we're delving into a lot of extra information in a special event beyond the normal special event stuff. So we haven't harped on that as much. Everything else we've been fine with. Everything else has been either invoiced or, you know, followed through and simple. So that's just the one that it was questionable. And then after that one time that I was told that they didn't want the information because it didn't provide them anything that they were looking for, we stepped away from it.
Yeah, I don't think it's really our right or business to be auditing any company that's going to put on an event at the field. I mean, we can certainly ask for money up front or do anything else, but with these guys, why would we do that? I mean, they've been doing it, they've been doing it longer than I've been here. So I don't, and there's never been any issues. There's never been any problems. I mean, they get the police and everything else and it's safe and everything. But I mean, I don't think the police have ever even made an arrest at an Old Salts event in the years that I've been here. So, to me, I would, and I know it's a workshop, so we're not voting on anything tonight, but I would probably scratch 5 and 6 off of this because I don't think it really, neither one of them really does anything. I'm sure that if we go to them and ask them for money for this and times are good, we're great, but their economic impact and just filling our meters alone, I think we can afford to do the field restoration and the aeration on our own. I don't really see a reason to do this. And frankly, if we're really representing the people, if we walked out of this meeting and say, hey, well, we didn't do a contract with the old salts, I kind of think the pitchforks would come out. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, Old Salts has been around for years and they've had a working relationship with the city for years. It's a 501c3. So anytime we want to look at their financials, it's an open book. So we don't need to worry about that in reality.
And on that note, if you go to our website at any given time at oldsaltfishing.org, all you got to do is scroll to the very bottom and the link to the IRS is right there. We just got audited, ironically, and it was rave reviews. So it was, like I said, our giving's there. Since I've been president now, I know it's well over $1.6 million that we've donated to local charities. We want to continue to do that, support those that need it. There are the heroes out there. Like I said, it's, the battles that a lot of these people face that we're able to help. And we've always been a silent giver, if you will. You don't see us in the news. We don't drag them out. We don't drag the papers out. We don't make a big deal of it. And obviously during the King, we do check presentations on the stage. Other than that, the organization's always been that way. And if there's a need for one of our organizations, we try to fulfill it as best as we can. And like I said, we are an open book. Our board meetings are open. I mean, our finances are right there online anytime. And I mean, I'd be glad to show you anything or go through anything.
So then I have to agree that there's no sense in worrying about number 6 on that. We can get it anytime we want it. Old Salts have been a part of Madeira Beach. I think y'all are y'all incorporating our logo with your information now? I think you are for the tournament anyhow. Yeah, so it's advertisement. It's really free advertisement that the city's giving and it is a part of Madeira Beach. It's been around for a long time and I'd like to see it stay. In fact, I would prefer personally to see it rather than a 5-year agreement be a 10-year agreement so that we don't have to keep addressing this, time and time again and be sure that we've got a long-term commitment from the organization to keep the Kingfish tournament here.
Okay, as somebody who also lives close to this event, I guess I'm more tempted to go with the agreement the way it is. It's a lot of noise, it's a lot of garbage, a lot of traffic, parking. When Happy went back to them a couple of years ago where they were parking on the library sprinkler systems, there was kind of a mean, sarcastic response from them to the city. So I'll go along with everybody else, but I'm not sure that they deserve it.
I think they do. They didn't, that was some individuals that parked on the grass. They can't be out there policing everybody that does everything that they do. And I agree that was very foolish of the people. It's like the other day I had someone that basically parked on the sidewalk and he got a ticket and he couldn't understand why he got a ticket because there was no parking sign. So some of it's common sense. And I don't really think we can punish Old Salts simply because some guys with their 4-wheelers parked up on the grass. The guys shouldn't have done that. And I think Old Salts actually fixed the grass or fixed the sprinkler systems where it was damaged. So I don't think that's necessarily a valid issue to go against the Old Salts on doing. But it seems like anyone that lives close to an event, they buy in an area that's close to where we have events, and then they're complaining about the events. And I don't think that's right. I think they probably should have done a little more due diligence before purchasing where they did. So it's not open yet.
It was more the PR response from the Old Salts than the people parking there.
Yeah, okay.
I'm inclined to follow the recommendation of the staff agreeing with simplified terms. I'm more comfortable with the 5 years, just because things change, our city's growing. I'm inclined to recommend just accept the recommendation of the staff in this matter.
I think Old Salts is fantastic. I think that it is a moneymaker that's going to be donated, but I think as far as any cost to the city, it should come in from the revenues of the event. I don't know how it shouldn't be a taxpayer. A lot of people may not come, may not be interested in that, but that's, they're here for the beach or for other reasons or just the weather, I think the event should pay for itself. If it costs $2,500 to redo the grass area afterwards, I'm not saying it has to be a fee. Maybe you have a way to, okay, you're going to come back in with, that's part of the contract. And you donate that in a way that's better for your books and better for the organization. And if you're concerned about how it looks on your books, and I don't know if that's something that's even feasible. I kind of point that question to Jay, but you have the equipment to take care of it. Is that, and it's kind of pays the city back that way. But anyway, I just think it shouldn't be a cost to the city, although the city is benefiting in other ways, and we want to support Old Salts in any way we can.
Well, this is one way we can.
Let me just point out something real quick. We would aerate the fields every year regardless. If they had the event there, they didn't have the event there. We do it when do you usually do it, Jay? You kind of. It actually keeps the field healthy.
Spring is actually typically right before, the best time of the year to do it's in May, right after.
Right after the
typically.
event, right.
The other thing is the field, as we've become better at taking care of what we have based on the soil and all that nonsense. It's become more resilient, We have an event in March, that's the carnival, and then we have their event in May. And the carnival, we just add water because it's growing time. And in May, we typically will aerate. So it's just.
I mean, is it a big deal maintaining it? I mean, after the event, is it all mud? Is it, you have to?
It depends on the conditions. If it's a rainy weekend, it's in worse shape than if it's a sunny weekend, but a lot of times it's just add water and fill some holes. And then the aeration is the next portion of it. And that's just to release some of the compaction. But again, the commissioner's correct in saying that, or vice mayor's correct in saying that we do that every year anyway. So.
It's a pretty long stretch because it goes carnival. I know it actually goes the girls softball tournament for 3 weeks of constant play, and then carnival, Old Salts event. So right after that's over, then we aerate the field just to kind of refresh the fields and keep them healthy. So, and like I said, we would do it. We don't charge the girls tournament to aerate the field. We don't charge the carnival to aerate the field. Let's be realistic.
Okay, well.
Yeah, I don't really think
these are things I'm.
Yeah, no,
learning.
I'm a little, like I said, it's a little too close to home for me. So I'm able to hopefully can shed some light on it.
I think it's important that we keep the events, and
Yeah,
So
the reality is that's normal maintenance of a ball field and where you have a lot of events going on. And it's not just Old Salts that's there and that have been requiring them to do that. It's a number of other events that haven't been required. So it's just a normal part of having a ball field that it gets aerated. My lawn service comes to my house and it's like, don't aerate, you don't need to, but it's just,
Okay,
it
and
goes with a.
something
with
that's not
taking care
really
of the
listed here,
grounds.
but that was brought up is the EMS fees, what do they come to? I mean, are they,
It's 2,500. It was 2650.
Yeah, so the EMS fees, it was about $3,000 total. I think it was just shy or just over, but that's tied into our ordinance of having, if you've got alcohol and you've got a crowd of such size, we require it.
oh, yeah,
And it's 2 plus their unit as well down there. They take the Polaris unit. So that one boils down to public safety. That's going to be chief, obviously, but and then I know the fees were at a point where we've gotten them now. They actually were covering the cost of them being there. Prior to that, we were charging a fee that wasn't covering the cost. So in the most recent, either this iteration or the previous fee structure, we've corrected that. So, and that's been the consistent review for a lot of our different fees. But so that's, like they said, they have been creeping up, and that was.
so is
Yeah.
is it reasonable, that we maintain the EMS fees, but we, as far as the $2,500 for aeration, that the city absorb that, and is that something that is reasonable?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I could go along with that. And
I mean, with every one of our events, we strive to do above and beyond. I mean, safety obviously is an issue. We bring the sheriff's department out. The community officers are out. To us, like I said, we want it to be a safe environment for everybody, a fun environment for everybody. So like I said, that, if we have to pay those fees, that's fine. And like I said, if the rec comes around and they want to go to the aquarium, we'll write a check as a donation to go to the aquarium. Or, we're involved with every event almost that's in the city, some way, shape or form. And the marketing that does go out, just so everybody understands, I mean, we market heavily from North Carolina to Texas for the event. We bring anglers from all over the country. These are guys that are spending serious money. And we spend over $50,000, 25,000 of that comes from Visit St. Pete, Clearwater. As far as we have to spend every dime, the reporting that we have to do there is very extensive to see where the money goes. And it's a different clientele than what they market to. Just so everybody's aware of that. Like I said, and no matter what the event is, locally, we have in Pinellas, 32,000 emails that are opted in. In any event that comes out there, we promote it. We help with the boat parade last week. I mean, we do an extra $250 to the best old salt boat. So we promote that event. We help with the grunt hunt where, like I said, we've been a community partner and we're not going to change that. And like I said, we've always been there if needed. And if we can do it, we do it. It's just gotten quite a bit difficult because everything's gone up so much substantially. And that's where we're just asking for a little bit of help on that end.
yeah, I know it's much more than just the Kingfish tournament. It's the Seawall tournament, it's the Grunt Hunt, it's the ladies tournament, and you guys are always there and giving back to the city. So I appreciate it, Tom.
Yeah, just for clarification, all we want to do is recover our overtime costs. So we invoiced 2,500 and our overtime cost was roughly 2,300. So that's all we're doing, when I
Okay.
redid the fee schedule.
Okay.
No, I would support that.
Okay. So I'm okay with that. If that helps Soul Salts out, is to waive the $2,500 payment for the field restoration. And we'll just continue to charge whatever the cost is on EMS. And I would still like to see it increase to 10 years to know that y'all are a part of the Madeira Beach family. And of course, if y'all are amicable to that, and that's something that I guess will come up during the regular commission meeting on that. Anyone else got anything? Okay. Any public comment on this?
Bill Gay, 423 150th Avenue, Madeira Beach, Florida. Well, the picture I have of Old Salt after looking at about 8 years of its financial filings with the IRS is very different than what you've been told here today. And looking at their financial filings, I find that they don't have a very good accounting system. It's an all-cash system. And their filings with the IRS contain no documentation of how expenses and revenues were handled. All Salts has done a little over $1 million a year for the past several years. In 2019, it did about $1.3 million in revenue, but its contributions, that is, its payouts to charity is only $30,000, less than about a little over 2% of what they take in each year. And that's been the trend over probably the past 8 years. Some of their financial data is not online yet with IRS, so I haven't looked at the last couple of years to see what that is. But their claims here, they're constantly, paying out to the city for contributions is simply not true. Their contributions were $30,000 in 2019, but I've seen some years where their contributions they report to IRS are less than $10,000. The largest expenditure they have, one of the largest expenditures they have is to the Squidding production company, which is owned by the Verdensky's. That's always typically in the $100,000 plus range. My sense is that they have contributions they put in their IRS forms. I think in 2019, it was somewhere around $400,000, perhaps a little bit more than that. So if they had contributions of $400,000, why are they only giving out $30,000, claiming only $30,000 in payouts to charities? Something's wrong here. My sense is that the fishing tournament itself, the revenues for that is losing money, and they're using contributions that people contribute to Old Salt to cover the losing costs they have on their fishing tournaments. So what I propose is that the city needs to take a very careful look and do an audit of their financial transactions for the last 2 years, 2020 and 2021. I suspect they've filed their IRS reports for that period of time. I think also that the city needs to recoup all costs that it incurs in sponsoring these tournaments. If this was the big deal charity and was giving 90% of their income to charity, like most reputable foundations do, we could skip on that and not worry about that so much. But the fact that such a small part of the money they take in goes to charity is really quite appalling to me. The other issue involved.
Thank you.
The other issue
Time is
involved.
up. Thank you. Anyone else?
I would like to speak to some of that. I would like to tell you that in 2020,
Please speak your name and address.
Amy Verdensky, Old Salt Fishing Foundation.
Thank you.
In 2020, we were actually audited by the IRS. Everything will be fully online whenever they get it up. Our events, the majority of the expenditures and that what goes on with it and is why our numbers are slightly askew to what he's referring to is that almost 90% of what we take in is entry fees. And then we pay those back out in tournament winnings. So yes, our portions are smaller, but it's because it is the actual event paying itself back. It's part of, and like I said, we just got all of this re-verified with the IRS just literally not 6 months ago with flying colors. So we are up to par. We are up to par with our reporting. We are, like I said, we report everything that we need to properly. And we do give back as much as we can possibly.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Okay, next up is ordinance 2023-01, Johns Pass Village Activities Center Plan, first reading and public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 3 points I'd like to discuss regarding the Johns Pass Village Activity Center designation. The first point is that I've observed that many residents seem to be confused still about the specific details of the Johns Pass Village Activity Center designation. So several weeks ago, I requested residents to submit their specific questions to me with the understanding that I would forward their questions to the Planning Commission and city staff. Mr. Gomez took the responsibility for finding answers to those questions, and our city staff provided detailed responses to every question I submitted. On December 10th, I provided residents on my distribution list the answers to their questions in order to give them some time to process this information. You have that in front of you, the questions and the answers. It's part of the packet that's on at your seat. This morning, I created a simple survey regarding the Johns Pass Village Activity Center designation and sent it to 54 individuals who make up my distribution list of Madeira Beach residents who have agreed to receive email communications from me. The survey asked, are you in favor of passing the proposals for ordinance 2023-01 and 2023-02, which would designate Johns Pass Village up to 133rd Avenue as an activity center? The options were yes, no, not sure, full name, and home address. As of right this moment, one person was in favor, two were not sure, and the rest of them were against it. My second point that I'd like to discuss, it was brought to my attention that some residents had concerns over the contract between Healy Consultant Services LLC and the city of Madeira Beach. Considering the confusion that seems to be prevalent regarding this topic with our residents, I made a public request, a records request for invoices and contracts between the city of Madeira Beach and Healy Consultant Services LLC for the last year. I received the contract and invoices from September of 2021 to October 2022. I put together a simple spreadsheet to total the amount that's been paid during that time, and the amount total $42,145. It's my understanding that any contracts that exceed $30,000 require board approval. And so I became concerned that the city might come under scrutiny for this apparent defect. And as such, I requested the following information from Mr. Trask, which I believe you've all seen all this. I just wanted to bring it up officially at the meeting. I asked Mr. Trask to provide a written opinion, and you can look at this, advises the commission, and his answers, his responses are in red. And I don't think he's had a chance to put together all the documents and found all the documents for a complete response at this time. But
have you got a page number for me? I'm shuffling through here. Or is it a separate page?
So it's the one that starts with this. 1, 2.
Okay.
Are you referencing the handout?
Are you referencing the one that?
Well, I'm asking which one you're talking about, where you are in your information so I can follow it. That's all.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't number the pages. But Mr. Gomez did forward it to you. So if you want to, I can read the questions. I'll read the questions. They're short. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Got it.
That's it right there.
Okay, got it.
So sorry, I lost one. So it also became apparent, it was also brought to my attention that Forward Pinellas was contacted concerning their authority over the city of Madeira Beach and our designations for plans. And the response from Linda Fisher, who is the principal planner for Forward Pinellas, was that neither Forward Pinellas nor Pinellas County have any authority to penalize the city for failing to amend its comprehensive plan to be consistent with the countywide plan. And I'm pretty sure that Forward Pinellas meets every month and could take our plan up in a timely fashion should we request it. So for the first point, the majority of residents of Madeira Beach do not support this proposal for one reason or another. Second point, there may be legal issues with the contract between Healy Consultant Services LLC and the city, which Mr. Trask will address for us either tonight or at some point. And the third point, neither Forward Pinellas nor Pinellas County have any authority to penalize the city for failing to amend its comprehensive plan to be consistent with the countywide plan. For those reasons, I'm not comfortable moving forward with the activity center designation, but I welcome input from city staff, Mr. Trask, or anyone else that'd like to comment on that.
I'll be happy to. Okay, let's kind of take this step by step. Dave, actually, I do have one question for you. You did say one person was for it, 2 people didn't know, and you didn't say how many people were against it.
That's right, because
Yeah, and I just want to, because you said 54 initially, so does that
but
mean?
they haven't all responded.
Okay, okay. I just want to know what the number is. Just so.
Sorry, if that was misleading.
No, it wasn't. I just was clarifying. That's all.
The survey is still open.
Okay, let's just take this step by step, because I think there's the most frustrating part of this whole thing is there's so much misinformation being thrown online that nobody knows what ends up. So, and I'm not, and I think honestly, I think your surveys are great. And I love hearing from it. We'll talk about another one here later on in the show. But if you read online, here's the most glaring thing that just strikes me on this is if you read online and you listen to the people that are dead set against this, there's somebody talking about that this activity center, okay, activity zone is going to create 1,880 hotel rooms in Johns Pass. And everybody's read this, right? I mean, this isn't, I'm not making this number up. 18, because I wouldn't pick that one out of the sky. 1,880 hotel rooms. Now that there should make you chuckle. That Cambria over there has 125 rooms, okay? Pretty big piece of property, 125 rooms. I'm not a mathematician, but that's 15 plus Cambrias being jammed into Johns Pass, okay? So where would Johns Pass be? What would, just that alone should kind of get everybody kind of thinking, maybe I'm not getting all the correct information going forward, okay? The other part is, okay, we sit up here and we are the ultimate authority. We're the legislative branch of this city, but we take our leads and we should take our leads, obviously from our citizens, but also we have a staff of very well-paid people, okay? We've hired a brilliant consultant to walk us through this and be able to present it to the county, okay? But the idea, the entire staff is 100, I haven't heard one person from staff saying, that's an issue, maybe we should do it. No, the staff's 100% behind it. It got put in front of the planning commission. Our planning commission did their due diligence, and the planning commission, and I know Ray sat on, I don't know if you sat on it too, but I know Ray sat on it. That's what they do. You guys, you look at planning and zoning, that's your main focus. Our main focus is a lot of different things. They're specialized on that. And we appointed that board. We hired our staff that agrees with it. We appointed the board that I believe the vote was 6-1. And the one dissenting vote, the reason he dissented was because it wasn't big enough. He wanted to include 129 and 131 in it. Okay. So to come up and like I say, everybody's entitled to their own opinion on this, but our experts, the people that feed us the information, are overwhelmingly in support of it. Okay. I no disrespect, man. I don't think that by looking at this, you can say that the majority of the residents are not for this. I think if the majority of the residents knew exactly what was going on and not reading nextdoor.com, they might get a better feel for what we're trying to provide here. We're not new. The activity centers around here aren't new. There's one in Treasure Island. There's one in St. Pete Beach. There's one in downtown St. Pete. There's one in Clearwater. Okay. They're a designation provided by the county in order to give us the flexibility to do certain things. Okay. This isn't, hey, let's blow up Johns Pass and put 1,880 hotel rooms there. I would vote against that. That's crazy, but it's not even practical. It doesn't even make any sense. So my point is, if all the people that are feeding us information, we're going to disagree with everything that they say. Okay. The overwhelming majority of the people that we hire and we staff in order to do this are telling us that this is the right thing to do and the right direction to go. And we tell them, no, then I guess We're gonna have to get rid of all the people we got and find new people and find a new planning board and find a new, because we're totally on different pages. I think we need to actually read this thing and go through it and make sure that everybody knows what this actually is, what this designation stands for. That's all. Okay. And like I said, I apologize for getting a little worked up because, you know, you read this stuff and I probably shouldn't read that damn website as much as I probably do. But that thing just stuck out at me. 15 Cambrias in just, well, there goes all our parking. There goes everything. And there goes the whole idea of John's Pass, the whole concept and the whole reason why we have it and the whole designation that it is. Okay. I can't imagine a board coming up here saying, you know what? That'd be a good idea. We just bulldoze the whole thing and just build some hotels out there. No, it just doesn't make any sense, guys. Thank you.
Well said. 100% agree. It just blows my mind. I've gone to next door a couple of times and I just get sick when I see frankly, the BS that's put out there on next door.
Thanks, Mr. Andrews. I don't read Nextdoor for that very reason. It makes my blood boil. Mr. Trask, are you prepared to give us any kind of response yet on those other issues regarding the contracts, or do we need to just sit tight on that?
So as for Mr. Healy, that's obviously not part of this agenda item. The agenda item is to consider John's Pass Village Activity Center and not necessarily the consultants involved. But as for have I had the opportunity to look through the information, it has still not all been provided to me. Some was provided to me late this afternoon as I was traveling from the office here. Mr. Laughlin had provided that by email. I'm still waiting for additional information from the public records. And I'm still waiting for additional information from the planning department. So I don't have an answer as to the appropriateness of the hiring and the providing of the task orders or the work that Mr. Healy has been doing over the last year or so.
So you're not concerned about any possible litigation if indeed the contract was defective in any way?
Well, in the city of Madeira Beach, I'm always worried about litigation. Okay, because there's 2 or 3 individuals in the city that have nothing better to do.
Twice on Sundays.
But that being said, and I said that sarcastically, because I really don't know, what individuals out there in the public going to do. But as for someone filing a lawsuit because of the fact that the city hired a consultant through a particular process that person or that entity doesn't believe is appropriate, I just don't see that happening. But I will tell you that there are solutions for all of the things that are being suggested. And so one of the solutions to resolve that whole issue is, and that's maybe one of the things that I'm coming back to you is bring it back before the city commission and have them ratify the contract and every payment that was made. And it's a done deal. It's over. The issue is over. But I want to review all those documents and I want to give you my thoughts on it and then give you as I mentioned in the email, and you haven't read that last those questions out loud, but I'll be happy to provide what I believe is an appropriate solution on that issue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'd still like to discuss this and go through it. But I do like the idea of not voting on it tonight and postponing it so that what we hear tonight we can consider, because I haven't read this.
Yeah, we're not going to vote on it tonight. We can't vote in a workshop.
No, but 6 o'clock, we're supposed to be voting on this.
Right.
So I hope there's more information coming at the workshop on.
We do have a presentation regarding the item. That's what the entire item is, but we deferred to the commission to begin the discussion, but we do have a presentation and discussion. That's the purpose of this item, and not to discuss anything unrelated to it or really something that's not germane at this point.
Right. So Mr. Healy, you have the floor.
Andrew.
You observed the Planning Commission did consider this at length at public hearing and has recommended approval of both ordinances 2023-01 and 2023-02. Staff met following that public hearing and looked and considered the comments made and have offered for your consideration a possible amendment to that first ordinance. And that's attached, I believe, from staff, and Andrew will pull that up. It had to do with the discussion about the appropriate residential density in the transitional district, which is the northernmost character district within the proposed activity center. And the current proposal was that the residential density be set at 24 dwelling units per acre. When we went back and looked at that, we listened carefully to the comments of the public at that public hearing that were concerned in particular about any intensification along the area on the west side of Gulf Boulevard, particularly with regard to Gulf Lane. We looked back at what the current permitted residential density is, and it's 18 units an acre. And our suggestion to you is if the commission agrees that we change the permitted residential density in the one character district, that being the transitional district. Andrew has identified the 2 pages on which that change would occur. It would occur first on page 31, which describes the narrative for that particular district. And it would change the numbers on page 33 of the current plan document. Again, under the column for residential density, it would change from 24 to 18. And that would have the effect further in the last table 3.8 on that same page of reducing the overall average density for the activity center as a whole from 19.4 to 17.8. That is the sum and substance of any change of substance to the proposed ordinance 2023-01. The other kind of incidental correction was to a parking count on 133rd Avenue West, where it showed more spaces than are actually there. And Andrew has corrected that table as well. So with those corrections or consideration of corrections, the staff position would be to recommend approval of 2023-01 and 2023-02. There were no proposed changes on part of the staff to the amendment, which is the corollary amendment to the actual approval of the plan. Be glad to answer any questions I can about the change or anything else that we can address.
If I might. Just watching the planning commission, well, actually wasn't, I guess it was the planning commission meeting where all the affected parties were present. I thought that was a fantastic meeting. I didn't attend, but I viewed it online. It seemed like that the west side of Gulf Boulevard was where all those comments were coming from. And I see that you did make a modification from 24 to 18 as far as the density.
Yes, sir.
But my question is, I guess, when I think of an activity center, and I think of John's Pass Village, I don't know why that section or the transitional section is really included in the discussion, because you know, I think more of the activity center as being basically the triangle where you have all the retail and you have the restaurants and that's where residents and tourists alike tend to visit for entertainment or for shopping or for, you know, people activities. So I'm just a bit confused why the area is as large as it is.
I think it goes back to the original discussion that was held in a series of public meetings or workshops about where to draw the lines on the activity center. Originally, there were alternatives presented, it's my understanding, that would have continued it all the way north along Gulf Boulevard to meet up with the town center activity center. That discussion that resulted from those meetings was that that was too much. It needed to be drawn back to limit it in more direct relationship to your description of kind of the traditional center core of John's Pass Village. The transitional area, it does a couple of things. First of all, it recognizes that there is a relationship for both the residential temporary lodging and on the east side, some of the commercial uses to the activity center proper. Secondly, it allows for a step down in the density, which we've now suggested, to recognize a tailoring off, if you will, of impacts and relationships to the core of the center, but it gives it a buffer, both for that area itself and for the area then to the north that serves for the purpose of the name. It serves as a transition from the more intensive or central part, if you will, of Johns Pass Village to the periphery.
Okay, I just, in my mind, even everything really on the west side of Gulf Boulevard, I could see incorporating the transitional section on the east side of Gulf Boulevard, but and maybe it's just my mindset, activity center is not so much dwelling units. It's more like a gathering place for people that are either in the condos or in residence or, traveling to and from there for hours at a time, not nights at a time. If you follow
I
what I'm
understand that
saying.
perspective. The fact of the matter is that any activity center that is going to prosper and flourish needs to have a combination of residential, temporary lodging, and the commercial.
But it's surrounded by that. That's what I'm saying. I don't understand why the activity center is part of that definition or included in the map, but that's just my
I
perspective.
think if you look, Commissioner, at the details within that, there's not a lot of change with what is otherwise now permitted. We're really not making wholesale changes within that area in terms of, at least as proposed to be amended, the residential density, temporary lodging.
But again, I'm going back to
The concept.
The concept, the whole idea is, and again, that's the way I understand it is, disaster happens, we need to rebuild. Okay, that's more of a floor area ratio. We want to make sure that the floor area ratio meets or exceeds anything that's there. As far as density, that's where I'm having my heartburn on how does that benefit the community? How does that benefit the residents? I'm having a hard time with that.
I think my point, let Andrew elaborate, is that it doesn't change it. It really is not encouraging more intensification. It's providing for this transition to occur, but to acknowledge and recognize the relationship that it does have to the larger activity center. Certainly it's the commission's prerogative to change that if you see fit. I think one of the other things that I didn't mention and should have that came out of those earlier public meetings was a clear differentiation within the activity center. It's not a one size fits all. We created actually 6 different character districts to try and recognize those relationships in the separate character. And there's considerable dialogue in the plan about the individual characteristics of each and how they interrelate. And we do think it's important to look at it as a whole, but recognizing these distinctions within the whole.
So the existing future land use category in our comprehensive plan, over the transitional, what would be the transitional district is now currently resort facilities medium. The floor area ratio you can reach varies on amount of land that you would be building on, but potentially if you have enough acres, you could have a 2 FAR and a temporary lodging density of 75 units per acre. What we're proposing would match that 1-to-1 while making sure that commercial isn't allowed, like standalone commercial isn't allowed in this area, because we understand the residents are very concerned about noise and negative impacts like that. So this area will still be residential, a mix of residential and some temporary lodging uses. And it's clearly defined in the plan that way. One of the things, this area is still within proximity of John's Pass. It's about, because I've walked it, it's about half a mile. And and it has places like Madeira Bay and Barefoot Beach Club, which are have temporary lodging dwellings that people stay there to walk over the John's Pass to visit it. Past that, though, it does, the type of development does become less intense, so that's why we cut it off there, because Madeira Bay and Barefoot Beach Club are basically the last very intense developments compared to what's next to it.
Commissioner, one final point, and I promise to be quiet, is if we look inside the area proposed to be classified as transitional to the breakdown of the existing categories under the city plan, you'll see, you go back to the land use map, Andrew. Sorry. You'll see the city plan on the right shows a differentiation of categories from commercial to residential office retail to actually residential medium. If you remove this from the activity center, I would certainly encourage the board to go inside of those current categories and make the very same changes we're making to the density, because there are within that commercial general, there are inconsistencies with the countywide plan that have to be reconciled, just as in the core area of John's Pass. There are differentiations in the resort facilities medium category and in the resort category that are inconsistent and would need to be adjusted in order to try and make those people whole, in effect. Our first premise in most of this was to do no damage to what is there now relative to the standards.
And I can appreciate that. And I go back and I'll say that, again, the transitional, this is a perfect map for it. The transitional section east of Gulf Boulevard, I believe is part of an activity center. It is retail services. It is, it's not dwelling units, what it's not. And I, you know, in my mind, an activity center is just that. It's someplace where you're going to go and enjoy an activity, whether you're a tourist or a resident, because that brings value to the residents. And I'm always trying to look to bring value to the residents. The dwelling units are the only area that I typically ever hear any pushback on this whole thing. I'll finalize this because I know we're short of time. The last time we met, I asked, okay, we have the existing, what's on paper, what's allowed. We have the future, what's being proposed. And I asked if anyone had done an analysis of what is physically there now. I think you did. My first reading through all this, if you can, you know, help me
I pulled up
locate
the
that.
slide with that information
And
and it's in the plan also.
Which page is that? Because I'm going to mark it down again.
In the actual plan itself, let me find it.
Andrew, we cannot hear you. Get close to the mic and turn it on.
Oh, sorry, the mic's on, I wasn't close enough.
I think I can find it. I was on it a little earlier, but I need to absorb this a little bit more. I know we're supposed to vote on this tonight, but I want to be able to.
It's page 20 of the plan.
Yeah, page 20.
Okay, which is.
So in the
okay,
agenda item.
Yeah, 91 of
91.
yeah. Of 149. Okay. Now I want to mark that and analyze it a little bit more. But I appreciate it.
Okay. In the John's Pass Resort and Transitional District, there's a mixture of like residential uses, like condominiums and a couple single-family homes, and with some like temporary lodging uses. A lot of the condo units, though, especially with all the business tax receipts that when I have to check the zoning on them, a lot of people do nightly rentals around or down there in those condo buildings. The activity center category with like in the countywide plan itself, like actually the apartment complex I live in up in Largo's in that category. It's allowed, it's like a mixed use category. You can have a mix of residential and temporary lodging and commercial. It basically is a category that exists to allow for that kind of mixed use development.
Okay, one last, I know I said one last question last time, but when you're looking at dwelling units on the west side of Gulf Boulevard, those FAR and density measures have nothing to do with what they would be proposed in the what I'll call the triangle area or anywhere else in the plan.
They're separate and distinct.
They're separate and distinct, yeah. Okay, because I think that's some of the fear that we want to make sure we get through. Okay. That's all for me.
Okay, anyone else? Anything?
Yes. Okay, I think most residents are worried about hotels, which would probably be in a PD. So if you go to page 104 of 149, you have the units per acre. I assume that's what UPA is.
Yes.
Okay, so if we look at the commercial core and John's Pass Resort, no, sorry, commercial core and traditional village, that comes out to 8 acres. And if we do the worst case of 100 lodgings per acre, we're talking 800 hotel rooms. So that would be the highest density we would have in those two locations. Is that correct? Or would is a PD different than these max numbers?
No, someone I suppose could apply for a planned development district, but part of our objective is not to necessitate a plan or zoning amendment in order to achieve these. The higher numbers that you cite, the 100 units, would be available only if there were a development agreement that's processed and made application, processed through the Planning Commission and the City Commission. That's something you'd have to approve as a specific plan of action. The details of whatever that property is and what would be involved in approving it. So it could only occur, those bonus numbers, I think we tried to be clear before, could only occur with a development agreement. The standard provision would allow consideration, at least through your site plan review process, of up to 75. The further assessment or assumption, Commissioner, of the example you cited would be that it would have to use all of the acreage in those two characters. Everything else would go away. And first of all, it wouldn't be consistent with the plan because the plan calls for mixed use. It wants commercial there. It wants residential to some extent there. Yes, it would allow for temporary lodging or hotel use, and that would be an important component of it, but not the exclusive use of it. If I were asked, is that consistent, the example you cite? No, it isn't consistent with the plan because it departs from the essential mixed use characteristic. The composition of the activity center is terribly important. That mix of uses contributes to its vitality, its attractiveness, all of the things that make it distinct to begin with. The other thing, just further qualification, I don't want to get too technical, but that number of units could only be achieved also if it didn't exceed the floor area ratio. So as I explained earlier, all of these standards are designed to work in unison. It's a dual standard. Yes, you can get that number of units if you apply and qualify and so forth, providing in that number of units doesn't exceed the floor area ratio that's also provided. So it isn't a unit count alone. We think it's important to apply both of those standards to give the city that extra measure of control. I will tell you that that's not necessarily a requirement of being consistent with the countywide plan. They don't necessarily look at it that way. But I think it's important to maintain the balance so someone isn't maximizing the number of units in excess of what would be expected in terms of the scale and proportions of the buildings, which is governed by the floor area ratio.
Okay, so if I was building my hotel, I could do first floor retail. And then somehow you have to parking in there too. And then you can still do your 100 units per acre if that's what's approved. Because we make on all of the PDs, we pretty much change the floor area ratio as part of the agreement for other things that they give back to the city. So the UPA is still something that is available for negotiations in a plan development, or it's a hard, fast.
No, it would be available through a plan development, but I don't, what I'm trying to say is I don't think
We don't think we
have
would
to
do
use
it.
the plan development. They could simply submit a development agreement and go through the same it's a public hearing process with a development agreement. And only that number of units can only be approved if approved by the commission. You might say it's too many. Yeah, we'll approve 80, but not 100. And all kinds of details go into that decision about what impact, where is it? What impact does it have on the neighboring property owners? What about the offsite impacts that it might generate? All of the things that you would typically consider.
Okay. Okay, so we can't say that we're not, when these people come up with this 1,880, we can't say that's impossible because there's only, if you use all the acreage, you only have 800 units absolutely maximally allowed. It's possible that they could do something more than that, but it would take gymnastics.
It would take
And
gymnastics. I'm sorry.
every building there would have to be torn down to do this.
It wouldn't be possible in certain districts because, well, I think what they probably did was they did the 27 acres times the county maximum, which we're not allowing because our plan regulates what happens here and we can be more restrictive than the counties, and that's what we propose to do. Certain districts right now that are commercial general, like would be reduced, like the boardwalk area that's now currently commercial general would be reduced to, we wouldn't allow for any temporary lodging density there. The traditional village area, we only would allow for 45 units per acre of temporary lodging density. The only places you could get up to 100 with a development agreement would be the commercial core and John's Pass Resort. And that would come down to you guys would have to go through you guys to approve it or not approve it. Right now, the max is 75 in the resort facilities medium and 60 in commercial general. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I missed that. Are there any locations in Johns Pass Village now that have a lodging UPA of 75 or 100?
Yes, just the resort facilities medium would allow a range of 45 to 75. That's the highest that's available currently.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Not in the traditional village, I think at the traditional village and the commercial core are where the people seem to have, that's what they think of as John's Pass.
Okay.
Are there any buildings in those two areas that have that high of a UPA?
Well, those areas currently are primarily commercial only. Most of the current existing like residential and temporary lodging densities are either, let me go.
Andrew, let me answer it specifically. Are you talking about the temporary lodging, specifically the hotel? No, the answer is no. In the two that you asked about, the current, what's interesting, I think, is in traditional village, the existing allowance is for 60 and the same number in the commercial core. So the highest in those two districts that you asked about for temporary lodging is 60 units an acre at present.
I guess my point, or if people are very, very much concerned about that, we could change that 75 and 100 numbers down a little bit. As an option.
Mr. Healy, can I ask, or Andrew, in the space where currently Florida parking rents from that owner is just a lot right now. Currently, could a hotel be built?
Commissioner, I'm sorry, I don't know where you're asking about specifically. If you can help me with that, I'll try and answer.
This is referring just off of Boardwalk Place or 128th Avenue. I think Andrew will point out on the map. You can't build, currently you cannot, and you still need a planned development regardless of what happens.
Currently.
So even in the future, you still need a planned development.
If it's a activity center, could one?
You
be
still
built?
need a planned development.
So that doesn't change the potential for that space without planned development. Is that correct?
So right now, if someone came in with the PD with that category,
Can't hear you, Andrew.
if someone came in with a PD with that category right now, with the commercial general future land use, they'd be able to do 60 temporary lodging units per acre on depending how large that site is. I don't know the exact acreage of that vacant area, but that's what would be allowed in our current comprehensive plan.
And then if it becomes an activity center designation, how would that change it?
It would go to 75 and as the standard and 100 with the bonus or the development agreement.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I got it. Any public comment on this? Yes.
Just to clarify, also that site has a right of way in the middle. So that changes that entire
Has a road right down the
process.
middle
It
of
has a street, a right of way.
City property.
Correct, a public right of way.
Public comment?
Good afternoon again. Chuck Dillon, 529 Lillian Drive. Doug, for your vote, it was 5-1. I was not there.
Okay.
And also, I was kind of upset that they tried to squeeze it in on the 28th as opposed to having it on the 5th on the regular meeting. And I don't know what the rush is. You know, I was told that we had to get all this stuff done to submit it to the county. But then listening to the meeting, they said that it's not under time restraints. So I had a lot of questions that I was going to propose to them on the 5th, the meeting on the 5th, which I wasn't there. So of course I couldn't ask the questions. Also, there's just a lot of confusion, which all of these meetings, more and more information is getting put forward. And just like they're saying, okay, so as it is right now, it's 60 per acre or UP, whatever, and they want to put it up to 75. So this is where I think a lot of the concern is for the people. They just want to know understanding. And Mr. Healy did a very good job of explaining things, but yet there's still some of these questions about, okay, so what is this? What is this? And it's obviously, you know, I'm for it completely, but there's a lot of questions that are still unanswered. And some of the affected parties on the meeting on the 28th were not heard. Commissioner Tagliarini was one. He had filled out the paperwork that he was supposed to be one of the affected parties. I did learn though with that, anybody in the city can be an affected party. And I was going to sign up to be an affected party for the next one, but yet it wasn't posted within the time frame to be able to fill out the paperwork to be an affected party. So it's kind of a convoluted thing. And once again, I don't know what the big rush is. And there seems to be a lot of questions. That's all I have to say. And also I feel I'm trying to be ahead of this for you guys so that when it's passed on, there's more information done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Gay, 423 150th Avenue, Madeira Beach. I thought Doug's comment about bulldozers was a proper thing to bring up here. This is really, I've toyed with the idea of activity center, and I kind of think this is an inactivity center where you're going to go and sleep, eat, and drink. That's about all that's there. I don't know if there's any green space there, any exercising like that. But I think the bulldozer might be a better summary of what this center is all about. The bulldozer, in sense of what I've noticed about ownership patterns there, is that properties are being bought up. These were 40 by 80 lots, I think, or maybe 40 by 100 lots in most cases. Those lots are being bought up now by the developers and speculators. And what they're going to do is tear down these two-story buildings. They're very, the setbacks are very, very limited in terms of requirements. So they're going to build a lot higher. So the intensity and density of these neighborhoods down here are going to be quite dense, quite a lot of people there and quite a lot of traffic there. I'd be looking something for the activity center down there that might do something more for residential, permanent people who would live there and could be ongoing participants in the democratic process here. And what we're seeing down there, I think, the proposal I've seen from D'Agostino and so forth, it looks like we're going to have a lot of hotels down there. There's many hotels they can pack in there. We're going to go from two-story buildings to, I don't know, 10, 11, 12-story buildings. When the Madeira Beach Town Center was proposed here, it was 11 and 12-story buildings on several of the plots here. Fortunately, we were able to get some of that knocked down. So, yeah, I think I call it the bulldozer kind of plan. The other thing, Mr. Healy has made the comments that, well, what we'll be able to control this is planned development. What we've learned here is that planned development doesn't control anything, that the city planners, the city commission have day in and day out violated most of the rules of the planned development process in terms of height of buildings, in terms of setbacks. And there are good examples of that here on the causeway with the Cambria Hotel. Setbacks, and now they want to put an accessory building there, not allowed by the ordinances, but it's been approved. They've got a permit to do it. The setbacks for the two condos over there, Carnes condos, are not code compliant. So the planners are not doing their job here, and the commission is not looking into these issues to make sure that the planners are following the ordinances here. Bill Carnes is saying, well, we had to violate the setbacks here because Bill Gay made us reduce the height of these buildings. Bill Gay didn't make him do anything. These were negotiated settlements. Bill Carnes decided he would violate the setback requirements, and the city did nothing to enforce its ordinances. And Tom Trask sat on the sideline and through all of this and did not say a word. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Jerry Cantrell, 13322 First Street East. I'm one of the affected parties that was not allowed to speak. I actually had to work that night. I came up late. I was told I couldn't. That's all there is to it. Before I say too much, Mr. Gomez does a great job. I know he tries to pull everything together. He really does an awesome job. And you got a great staff. You have an appearance problem. I mean, Doug or Dave, you hit it right on the nail. If you want to correct the appearance problem, communicate this to the people. They don't know what's going on. Even though you got this going up here, where is it going? How do they get it? If you want to fix the problem, reduce the UPA size. Make it what it currently is. It's not going to change what's there, but it does prevent it from getting any larger. I look at two things that were in there. It goes from, I think we're currently at 60, it allows it to go up to 100. That's a significant increase. But of course, you're saying that there's different things you have to look at, which could actually minimize that. Let's see, there was another thing. The purple area was the commercial retail, something else like that. I believe it was actually in the location of Madeira Beach Resort, if I'm not wrong. Is that correct? That right there, okay? That's nowhere near John Pass. That's your transitional. It goes all the way down towards public, towards residential areas. So you're adding some different stuff in a location that currently isn't there. That's a hotel, condo, whatever it is. I think there might be something inside there, but I'm not certain, but it is not currently commercial retail to the best of my knowledge. There's nothing there like that. That adds something different closer to residents that could be an issue. The whole thing I see is, another thing. When Mr. Tagliarini mentioned something about 3 points, there was some valid stuff there. It was cool. All right. And then it was brought up about Madeira Beach. What is the name of that website? I can't remember the name. Madeira Beach something.
Next door
neighbor. That wasn't even part of the discussion, but yet it was thrown out there. So, and not that you don't have valid points, because you do. It's crazy to think we're going to have 180, 115, whatever hotels out there. But that's not what he said. And you change the conversation. So just pull it together and make the appearance right. That's what's got to happen.
Anyone else? Okay, moving on. Next is ROC Park waterfall improvements. Mr. Hatch, I know you've been working long and hard on this one.
Yes, good evening again. I'm going to be quick. I'm on a self-imposed deadline here because I've got to go coach soccer across the water here. So we've been dealing with this waterfall out here in Rock Park, and I know you all have received information from a couple individuals as well as staff, providing for necessary repairs and also improvements for that feature. We have spent a lot of time over the last year looking, as you can see in the discussion portion of this, we've been seeking out bids and information as far as getting repairs done, whether it's poor circulation, it's falling apart. We have done some other small repairs to it. The park gets used quite a bit, whether it's softball or special events or whatever, and people always find some time to, drop some trash or rocks or something in there that causes damage to this. So what we're looking at doing is kind of refacing the whole thing, getting the Pebble Tech, which is the surface of it repaired, which is causing most of the green. It's creating a lot of cavities, so all of the algae and everything sticking in it. That's the feedback that we've gotten. And additionally looking to do some circulation stuff to not only when the feature is running, but when it's the waterfall feature portion of it doesn't run all day because it does produce a little bit of noise. At night, we would have a circulation portion of it. I guess I'm interrupting another meeting. Anyway, we did get a few quotes here. Well, excuse me, we contacted about 10 companies, most of them a wide range of, we've had people laugh at us. We've had one gentleman unfortunately found the memorial of one of his younger friends out there and started crying and left. And there's just been a lot of weird interaction with it. And we did receive this one quote for $47,000 to do the repairs. Additionally, since I posted the agenda for this meeting, we received a second quote that is actually higher than that. And I can, when we go to approve this, I can include that information as well. But anyway, I wanted to see the board's appetite on moving forward with making these necessary repairs for this, and also the improvements to make it look better. We're looking to, something that'll be sealed better, something that'll circulate better, something that'll have a longer shelf life as far as the warranty and everything. Some of the commissioners up here might not have been here when we did the similar improvements to the splash pad, but we did about $35,000 worth of improvements to that, which actually since then we've had nearly, it's probably going to break as I say this, but we've had nearly no issues regarding that feature since then. So I know the one question is outside of our procurement policy. Again, we've We've gone through it. If we need to go through the process of doing an RFP, I worry that we'll probably only get those 2 responses back, or we won't get responses at all due to the lengthiness of this. But I just wanted to get y'all's kind of feeling on it's Hollywood Pool Pros, 47,000. And then I wanted to put 10% in there because there were a few question marks and potential pipe damage underground when they get working on it. So that's where we sit with that. So if you guys have any questions or.
That, yeah, one, I wonder if we shouldn't look at maybe fiberglassing that.
We did look at the fiberglassing, the shallow deal with that. Well, first, the fiberglass, that I got a quote for that was $10,000, and that didn't include anything else.
So that's above it.
And it was only white, which is with the algae issues we have, stains quite a bit. And then, you know, whether it's the rocks or whatever else. Luckily, this Pebble Tech, when people throw rocks or trash or whatever, it kind of hides it a little bit before, you know, so we can find it before others do. But the fiberglass was, he provided the quote. He did not seem very interested in the job. It was kind of a weird interaction, but it is an option if that's what we want to do, go in the direction of a white floor on that.
Well, it's, I mean, that doesn't matter. I mean, it's easy enough that can be painted or gel coated. What else was I going to ask? I mean, we got to do it, but.
Okay, I'm all in favor of certainly getting the waterfall repaired. A lot of people are griping about it. I just have a question. Which responsibilities are of the ROC Foundation responsible for, and which responsibilities are the city responsible for the park? Is this all us? Does the ROC not have, the foundation have any responsibility in the park?
Yeah, that was the park was there's a lot there. But as far as the features, the trees, the awnings, everything in the park was donated to the city and at the end of the project. So at this point, it is a city owned facility. It is our.
We maintain it. It's
Yes, we
completely the
maintain it.
city's.
So it is our responsibility.
Yes,
Just wanted to confirm that.
100%.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like it's an important, it's a visual thing, you know, and lots of people are complaining about it when it's not working.
Yeah, park in general needs to be updated. And I think that was put in the budget, but definitely this needs to be done. But I would think at 47,000, we may need to put this out on RFP.
That's again, it will delay this by at least another 3 months.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
And we may not get any responses as Mr. Hatch.
It
stated,
doesn't look
but
like it with 1, 2, 3,
I think there's 10 names on there.
10
But we-
names on here now.
Would you say that we're in this position because of lack of upkeep on an annual basis or?
It's been when that thing, the day I never opened, but the day that it started operation, we had a pool company that was looking after it. And it's 6 inches of water that you're trying to keep clean, and the Florida heat, and then it rains, and then it was tough to keep balanced. And I think this is part of their proposal, is to help us with that. It was meant to move water the way it is now. Some of these improvements are going to move it and keep it cleaner. There's some chemical components that'll help with it. And when I say chemical, I know folks with dogs and, you know, they get skittish, but it's just to keep it clean. It's not going to harm anything out there or anything else.
No, I support it. I support it all, but I'm just curious, are we going to be back at the same spot 2 years from now because we couldn't maintain it because.
The hope is no. And that's what, when we talked to them, they said, this will help keep it clean. Obviously the filters, you know, all that stuff. And that's what we continue to do. But as we drained that thing about a month ago, filled it up. We've been cleaning the filters once a week, and it's green right now. And that's just, yeah.
How about salt water in there?
That's an option as well too. They've, the same company that we discussed, that saltwater is possible. It's easier to maintain. But it did have some drawbacks, but I think the process still happens. It just slows it down a little bit, which
It
might be something
doesn't help that the kids swim in it and dogs are in it and everything else. And it's just natural that you got to imagine that if the water's not moving, it's going to be impossible to clean. So, I mean, we have the money in the budget. you're right. If we go out for RFP and it looks like
No.
these guys have done their due diligence, they've gotten, 10 bids or 10, they've gone to 10, 12 different companies in order to talk about it. I say we move forward with it and let's get it done so that we can start, we got money in the budget to clean up the park and make it look like it was before, because I agree with Tag. People are griping about it and it's such a great gathering place, kind of become the jewel of the city. So we got to take care of it.
Yeah, maybe we need to look at putting out an RFP and something else to discuss on maintenance for it. And get that
Well, that's
off of,
the other part of this is what got us here for these quotes. We had a similar number of pool companies come out here and had no interest, including there's a pool company that they come out 3 days a week. They service the splash pad. They service the yacht club across the street. And they didn't even give us a quote to fix the fountain or work on the fountain.
maybe once it's repaired, we'll have a little better luck.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right.
Are there any of the repairs that could be done differently? Let's say you went with saltwater. So we're not with what they're doing. I mean, I think you've already done an RFP. You have 10 companies here that bid on or looked at it. In my opinion, but I'm more concerned about the long term, keeping it nice. So, but that's my.
Well, yeah, we'll have the saltwater discussion because again, the biggest issue is the pebble tech, that material at the bottom, it just eroded. And ended up in the pumps,
I just
destroyed the
hate
pumps.
to see them
It's
put
just-
money into it and then say, well, I wish we would have done this because then we could have kept it
Yeah.
nice.
Well, and another issue is there were a lot of little rocks when the landscaping was installed, and those were getting placed in the fountain very politely by passerbys. So we've removed those and put bricks around it. So we're working our way backwards to make it more sustainable.
You're always going to have that.
Oh, yeah. So we're looking for those ways, but I think salt's definitely a conversation to have with them further.
So,
Great.
okay, anyone else?
Is what they've done, does that constitute a RFP or?
It
do we
does
need to
not
start-
constitute an RFP.
So we need to do an RFP.
Either that or you can waive that process. If you find that this is the only provider or it's an emergency situation, you can also make that. I have not heard that tonight, that it's an emergency. But if this is a sole provider type of situation, I'm not so sure that that fits it either, because you have all sorts of pool companies that just didn't want to do it. So the best approach would be to do the RFP and maybe you just speed it along through the process, but that would be my recommendation, the RFP.
Okay. I guess we'll go ahead with an RFP on it then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment on this? Next is rebuilding the Archibald Park.
Chuck,
Oh,
Chuck
sorry,
Dillon,
Joe.
why do you have to do an RFP when you've got 10 people, 10 qualified companies that have basically denied? So if you do an RFP, they're gonna know what their prices were and they're gonna jack it up. And the others are not even gonna submit a bid.
Thank you. Anyone else? Next is rebuilding Archibald Park restroom building scope approval.
Good
Good
evening,
evening.
Mayor and Commissioners. What I have before you today is the scope approval for the engineering services to rebuild the bathroom structure at Archibald Park. I've included in your packet pictures of the current bathroom along with a structural assessment that I do not 100% agree with. As you see in the pictures that are included in your packet, you will see that there is a lot of spalding on that building and it is not repairable. The rebar that is in the concrete is rusted, which is causing the concrete to crack. We have major pieces of concrete underneath that building. The ramp is not up to ADA, nor are the facilities. So with rebuilding the bathroom, we would bring that up to ADA. And we would also increase the stalls in each by one. So currently in the women's, we have 3 stalls with no ADA. And then the men's, there's 3 as well. So we would increase to 4 in each. And with the Sofarelli, I'm not sure if anybody's been to Lake Seminole, but that bathroom facility that is there was designed by his firm. So what I did was take that bathroom and kind of change a few things about it to save us a tremendous amount of money. And that is what you have before you today.
Yeah, I wonder if we need to increase the number of stalls. Certainly for guys, that's not really a problem.
Well, we will be increasing by 1. Are you saying increasing more than?
No, I'm
4?
saying, do we really need to increase by 1?
We do.
Do we?
There is a heavy use over there at
Is there?
Archibald. The line is always constant, and that is kind of probably the main gripe that I hear, that we need to increase the amount of stalls over there.
So more than the 1.
We don't really have much room for more than 1,
Okay.
unless we eat into the parking lot. I don't think we want to do that.
Okay. And what do we do for the time that it's being built?
We will have a restroom trailer. We will have a temporary restroom, and we have to because of the snack shack.
If you've ever used the facilities at Archibald Park, you know this is a no-brainer. This definitely needs to get
There's-
done.
There's actually a picture from just the other day.
Right, I mean, and you also have the crumbling, the undercarriage there that's coming apart. We certainly don't need any accidents with that. I just want to know, Megan, I highlighted this. Staff visited public restrooms all around Florida.
I sure did.
Yeah, you did? Okay, that's
I really did.
that's heavy duty, kid. Good job.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, I'm 1000% in favor of this.
Not on the city's dime, I'd like to add. That was my personal time on vacations.
You need a hobby.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything? Is there any public comment on this? Thank you, Megan. Next is Area 5 roadway and drainage project scope and approval. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. Good evening again. So what I have before you with Area 5, that is 131st and 129th Avenue. With that, we will be milling and resurfacing the roadway, the curbs, and also the storm drains. I believe in your packet, you have a aerial map of that. And the reason for not including Pelican is due to the possible development. We do not want to increase the roadway or rebuild the roadway, and with a hotel possibly coming.
Megan, we've already approved all of this, right? You're just looking for, I mean, this is in the budget.
It's all in the budget,
Yeah,
yes.
I kind of figured, I mean,
Yes.
this is
Yes, and this is a,
Area
this will
5,
be a
so-
joint with Pinellas County as well for the water lines.
and the follow-up, the next one is the same
Same,
issue. Okay.
yes.
Commissioner Taglerini, you probably don't want these done, do you?
I assume you're being sarcastic.
Yeah.
I did apply for a grant from the Florida Job Growth, but the grant is still in review. I just requested an update and it's still in review.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Is there any public comment on this? Okay, next item is Area 6A roadway and drainage projects.
Sorry, excuse me, Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt. I have to go to work, so I'm gonna excuse myself.
Okay.
Want me to go?
Sure.
Well, hello again.
Knock yourself out.
So this next area is Area 6, which includes the northern part of town, 155th, 54th, 53rd, 1st, 2nd, Harbor, and Municipal. So with this, we will also be milling and resurfacing, curb work, stormwater, and we did receive $1 million from the state for this project.
I have no questions. We've been over it.
On this one, the only thing is the neighbors that said that they were asking about not having the slope be so.
We will definitely look into that. Absolutely. This will just be starting the design services.
Okay,
And then with that, we'll keep that in mind as well.
okay, cool, thank you.
Okay. Yes, we're all good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment on this? Next is proposed discussion review proposed property purchase for PW sanitation and fleet operations usage. Mr. Gomez, I think.
Thank you, Mayor. Commission, this item is to gauge the commission's interest in the possibility of a parcel located at the indicated address for 711 95th Street North that is currently for sale. Whether you would like to consider purchase, however, there is a process in order to proceed with anything, which would begin with obtaining an appraisal. This piece of property would suffice relocating our public works, sanitation and fleet, mainly mechanic and other equipment storage, into a more permanent location that we would own, that would alleviate us the currently paying up to $3,000 a month in rent. We do not know obviously what the purchase price would be. The property appraiser lists a just market value for the property, just like any other parcel in the county. As I stated, our process would be, if there is any desire to proceed, we would proceed with obtaining an appraisal for the property. If the appraisal comes in above $500,000, then we would obtain a second appraisal. The property owners indicated that they would similarly obtain an appraisal. They may have already, they had explained that they were looking to get one in the early part of December. But again, we would own the parcel. It's adequate for the current operations. Its size, it's fairly in the same location where we currently lease and have been leasing for some time. How many years? Since approximately 2013, 2012 or 13.
Okay. I like the looks of this. It's almost a no-brainer at depending on whether or not we can get it at the right price, because
Correct.
in 10 years, we've paid for it just about. So,
I agree 100%. I've been to this property, and that building in the back is perfect, in my opinion.
Oh, where is it? Is it just this
past-
way of
It's just north of the Wawas off of Bay Pines.
95th?
95th,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm on the wrong road. Okay, so
Yeah,
right
we're
down
on
Wawa
94th.
before the campground, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
No.
I'll go check it out. Yeah, I'd say let's get, for
Yeah.
500 or $1,000 to do the appraisal,
Right.
got to do that.
My apologies, Mayor and Commission. I did fail to mention it does have two structures. One that's an older structure, small, kind of like a front office almost, used as a workroom. And then the main building would be adequate with enough bays and space to accommodate our sanitation trucks as well as the mechanic
And
operations.
my understanding, it has very large bay doors. It has great power that's brought into that building. I think it's a slam dunk if we can justify it
Yeah.
economically.
so we can get our
Swing it.
equipment indoors. Okay,
Real fast.
sounds good to me. Okay,
We will
Any-
report back.
thank you. Any public comment on this? Next is Second Amendment, the extension for electrical services.
My apologies, Megan, that's back again. This is to approve, as the item states, the extension for our electrical services vendor. I think Ms. Webber will.
My
Right.
apologies. I
That's
thought I
okay.
was finished. So we've been under contract with USA Voltage since 2019, I believe, 2018. We did go out to bid for this. And the contractor has agreed to continue with the same prices as quoted during the first bid process.
That sounds good to me. I think they've done a good job for us.
They've done a great job.
They're great. We were using them. Yeah, actually, it probably goes back further than that because we were using them when I was here. So.
They
yeah,
did the Gulf Boulevard median
Right. They're-
improvements,
they're
which is where we found them.
Absolutely fantastic.
Anyone else? No. Okay, I think we're good to go.
Thank you.
Any public comment on this? I think that's it. Yeah. We're going to take a 10-minute recess. We've been here since 4. We're gonna go grab a snack real quick and so we will reconvene at 6:10 PM. This meeting is adjourned.